Watch Exeter TV online at Exeter. Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Bi-Weekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
Good evening and welcome to the October 23rd, 2024 meeting of the Exeter Budget Recommendations Committee. We will begin with introductions. I'm Bob Kelly, the chair of the committee and chair of the Water and Sewer and DPW General subcommittees. Liz?
Liz Canada. I'm on the Library, Parks and Rec, and Human Services subcommittee.
I'm Fran Hall, and I'm on the Water and Sewer Subcommittee.
Good evening, everyone. Corey Stevens, Finance Director.
Good evening, everyone. Melissa Roy, Assistant Town Manager.
Good evening, Russell Dean, Town Manager.
Steve Cronin, Public Works Director.
Paul Philosophy, Town Engineer.
Jeff Beck, Maintenance Superintendent.
Don Cloutier, Police and Fire Subcommittee.
Judy Rowan, Police and Fire Subcommittee Chair.
Good evening, Anthony Swan, 7 Marlborough Street, and on Water and Sewer Subcommittee.
David Kovar, Police and Fire Subcommittee.
Andrew Elliott, DPW General.
Thank you. And off mic, we have 3 representatives of the Select Board, the Chair, Nico Papankonstantis, Dan Chartrand, and Nancy Belanger. Thank you for joining us. This evening, we will be talking about the general budget, that is the non-water and sewer portions of the DPW budget. That subcommittee is made up of myself, Andrew, and Amanda. And we met with Steve Cronin, the director, Jay Perkins, the highway superintendent, Jeff Beck, the maintenance supervisor, Melissa Roy, the assistant town manager. And then we had a special presentation that's described in the report from the town engineer, Paul Vlasic. So it was very detailed discussion as usual. We wrote up the report. I know Corey's put together the spreadsheets. I probably made his life a little more difficult by transferring the information, but I just thought that the narrative in a sort of a bullet format might be a little bit easier to follow than going back and forth between the budget and another spreadsheet and our narrative, which we read anyway. So hopefully it was easier for you. But we can follow along. So the DPW budget begins on page 20 of tab 2. We'll start at the top. Paul, hopefully you'll bear with us for a little bit while we get to paving, if that works for you. So what I will do on behalf of the subcommittee is we'll just go down with the items that we felt were worth having a discussion about. But if anyone on the larger committee has a question or wants to provide input on something, feel free to jump in. I may be reading or looking at my report, so feel free to shout out, if you will. So beginning with admin, we didn't have anything specific in this section other than to note that the GIS coordinator that was approved last year is finally, or actually was approved 2 years ago, has finally been filled and is supposedly working out very well for the department.
Yay.
Mr. Chair, as we go
Yes.
through DPW, there's been some changes to staffing since this prelim budget was published that we need to bring in addition to the health, like we did last week.
Okay.
So I'll let you know, or you let me know when you're ready to.
Yeah,
enjoy
I
this.
think short of any questions from the committee on admin, we're ready for
Yep.
those updates. Sure.
Okay. So the first is line 51200, salary and wages part-time is now $300.
Is that
Okay.
the preliminary budget or?
The BRC budget is, well, the budget we're working with now is now 300.
The column, okay.
Okay.
Total salaries is 672,940, 672,940.
Okay.
Moving into the benefits.
Yep.
Health is now 140,320, 140,320. 5320. Dental is now 10,702, 10702. FICA is now 41,722, 41722.
So no change to life insurance?
No,
Okay.
nor long-term disability. And then finally, Medicare is 9,758, 9758.
And the benefits total?
292,413, 292,413.
Okay. Did anyone have any questions on any of the items on admin? Okay, the new total then for admin?
Total admin and engineering is 602,564, 602,564,
And what would be the percent increase in that?
5%.
Okay. On behalf of the subcommittee, I would move the budget for admin and engineering at 602,564. Do I hear a second?
Second. Andrew?
Any further, Andrew Elliott? Do I hear any further comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, on to highway and streets. These are sort of the same comments every year. A lot of the work gets done after the summer busy season with traffic, so anything related to paving or asphalt work, road work, bridge work, a lot of things like that that are generally year-to-date, which our book shows June, are generally spent in the September to November timeframe. And if you go back historically, you'll see that most of these are fully spent pretty much every year. Dam maintenance in particular, 55071, work is being done on waterworks and pickpocket dams right now. And before anyone asks, what about the warrant article for pickpocket? That doesn't mean that work still doesn't need to be done on the dam to avoid anything happening between now and when and if the warrant article actually gets approved and the work gets done. So work is still required.
Bob,
Yes.
question on 51310, salary wages standby. I'm just not clear what that is, and you're asking for a significant increase.
Steve?
So that refers to highway employees who are on call after hours. So basically from 3:30 p.m. till 7 a.m. the next morning, Monday through Friday, and for 24 hours on the weekend to respond to emergencies, whether it be pothole repair or a tree down on the roadway, road closure, things like that. So we did negotiate a slight increase with the union during this fiscal year. So that's the primary reason for the increase that you're seeing requested.
So that's contractual?
It is contractual, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, continuing with the report, just some updates down toward the bottom of the page 21, tree maintenance, 55310. For those of you on the committee last year, you recall that there was a one-time addition for a chipper body to add to one of our trucks that we could better maintain and manage basically the trees and the brush in town. That was sort of a last-minute addition in the DPW budget. Again, if you recall, that was purchased and it supposedly has been working out very, very well. Steve can give you an update if you'd like, but they're very happy with the purchase and what it's added to the program. So as you can see, there's a significant reduction in that line this year because obviously we won't be buying another chipper. Any questions on anything on page 21? We'll go on to page... Sure.
Can we, this is for Steve, I think, or anybody really. Weed control, Roundup to pre-emergent. I actually had caught my eye to see someone from DPW driving along in some kind of vehicle spraying a chemical onto either a road or a sidewalk, which actually kind of took me aback a little bit. Is this something we've been doing for years, or is this a new practice?
It is, yeah. They've been doing it for a number of years. It's for not only roadside brush control, but weed control in our sidewalks to keep them from prematurely deteriorating. So they are, pre-emergent chemicals that are non-hazardous. So I think we've gotten away from the Roundup products and now gone to something that's a little bit more environmentally safe.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, on to page 22. We'll spend a few minutes here talking about paving. The narrative goes over most of the background, but for those of you who have been on the committee for a while, the budget here is generally wavered between $700,000 and $900,000 over the past 10 years or so. Last year it was cut to $550,000. However, we received $150,000 in road aid from the state, so effectively it was $700,000, of which approximately $660,000 has been spent year to date. So this line will be spent. Hopefully you've had a chance to maybe look at the graph on the back of the report. But basically, Paul Blasich, the town engineer, gave us a little bit of a history review as well as some technical input on how our streets are assessed from a quality standpoint, a pavement standpoint, what helps them come up with a plan for which roads get paved and how and all of that. Again, for people who've been here for a while, you may recall in 2010, I think, or 2011, there was a request to bump the paving budget up to $1.1 million because it was perceived at the time that our roads were deteriorating quicker than our budget would allow us to maintain them, and so it was felt that a $1.1 million budget would help us maintain at least some stability. That budget was out of reach at that time and has pretty much been out of reach for us ever since. So as you can see from that graph, our pavement index, our pavement index has gone down steadily. But what I'd like to do is have Paul give us a little bit more articulate presentation. He's going to be meeting with the selectmen on Monday and give a full presentation, so you don't need to sort of trump that ace, if you will, but give us sort of a general description of how you came up with this and what it means.
Yeah, very good. Can you folks hear me okay?
Yes.
We do a pavement management program. It's called PAVER. It's one of the industry standards. We've been doing this since 2010. Basically, you go out and you quantify what you have for roads with an inventory. You do an inspection of the roads. You figure out life cycle costs, or not life cycle costs, service life graphs, so you know how a road reacts. And we did those specifically here in Exeter. And from there, we do an analysis of how much each treatment costs to do and what the expected lifespan of those treatments are. And we apply those to a roadway network. And it's not doing the worst roads first. It's trying to maintain the value of the whole roadway system. And with that, you try to keep some of your better roads from falling down into disrepair. And you spend the money there because it's cheaper than if you wait all the way until the end when it gets into reclamation and reconstruction activities. It costs a lot more. So that is the method that we use. And we've been applying this, and as the chair has said, our PCI value, and that's the pavement condition index, has been dropping. And it was a hope that through street reconstruction projects similar to the Salem Street project, the J.D. Hill project that we did a dozen or 15 years ago, that those would contribute to a better roadway network, which they do, but we're still having this pavement condition index dropping. And when I say dropping, it's not drastic. I think we got a good roadway network, but it may be time in the future here to thinking about spending additional funds on our roads to keep those pavement conditions up higher.
Excellent. Excellent summary. Don?
Amount of traffic must be part of the pavement condition index, volume?
It is not, but certainly the weight, the more weight of the traffic and the greater use contributes to a lesser lifespan. And where I mentioned the service life of an improvement, though it's reflected in those graphs, and we use those graphs as a way of anticipating how our road network's going to react.
Tom?
Somewhat dovetailing with what Don asked about, it was a really great presentation. I was sitting in unofficially on that presentation. And we talked about sort of the subjective, this is by way of response to you as well as just for general information, impression that some roads, by my recollection, were actually pretty bad a long time ago and actually are pretty good now. But the point that one of the many points that was made is that you can be on a heavily traveled road that's in good condition, but you might not be aware of the roads that are in less traveled neighborhoods that are in bad condition. And so I think that is worth pointing out. I think everybody always, I think people probably go with their own experiences, and some of the roads look pretty good, but I think in totality the study shows that we need to spend more money on the roads in totality. Anyway, just paraphrasing a small aspect of it.
Yeah, and the question that was asked by the subcommittee was, do these projects, because a lot of the paving we've done in the last few years to sort of supplement the $700,000, $800,000 that we budget, are these special projects, as Paul mentioned, J.D. Hill, and coming up will be West Side Drive, and Salem Street at some point. I'm sorry, School Street at some point, but Salem Street as well, 2 years ago. And the answer was yes, sort of. They sort of help the index, but most of the deteriorated roads are in what I would call subdivisions, but basically in residential areas off of the main road.
Yeah,
So
I think that's kind of...
So doing Linden Street, doing Main, J.D. Hill without those help somewhat, but the older, more dicey streets tend to be these offshoot streets, which we basically need to attend to. Paul? I'm sorry, David.
And my understanding, based on what you just explained, is that the roads that are getting prioritized are likely to be the ones that are already in good condition to keep them from falling into worse condition. So
it's a combination of the two.
Are the roads in these residential areas that are seeing a lot of wear and tear not getting? Is the public who lives in those residential areas that are do they have a valid perception that their roads are not getting the same attention that other roads in town are getting?
I think the perception in town is that the roads are in pretty good shape in general. There are specific areas and specific roads that may not be in great, but I think overall, there's a perception that they're pretty good. We spend a fair amount of money every year on maintaining the roads, and I think Public Works does a fantastic job. Having said that, the pavement does deteriorate. We also, in addition to nice roads, we also like to have them plowed, so that as that first snowflake falls, we like to have our whole cadre of plow trucks out there, which beats up roads. So, a lot of our work is fixing things that happen in a New England winter. So, the subcommittee did talk about trying to raise the budget for next year, and there are a lot of requests this year, as we found out on Friday. Just adding IT and health costs, added several $100,000 to the budget. So, we just didn't think that it was going to happen this year. One idea that we had was to consider, and this committee should ruminate on that, is maybe doing a CRF, capital recovery fund, a revolving fund, similar to what we did for water meters a number of years ago, where we seed, a fund to get that, up to where we need it to be, and then continue to fund it maybe at this stable level, but to sort of go ahead of that as an idea, because it doesn't seem like we have the bandwidth to increase this budget to $900 or $1 million. Just we haven't been able to do that. So that was one idea, and we should be discussing that. The executive committee, I'm sure, will be discussing that, and next year we'll be dealing with that again. But we recommended the $700,000 this year, which would be a $150,000 increase because we don't have road aid this year, and that's what we felt we could do. Any questions, Andrew?
I just want to point out, I think the roads are great here at Exeter. You guys do fill in a lot of holes. I see it all the time. You're always out there. I just wanted to also point out that, even if we increase the paving piece of it, finding the people, like I know staffing has been an issue in DPW in the past, and also finding contractors to do the work has been an issue in the past. So I'm of the opinion of this number that was presented to us, and if we kick off some of these projects we have in the backlog and, get more contractors availability, then maybe next year increasing. That's why I'm in agreement with this number.
Bob,
Judy?
may I raise my hobby horse about drainage? When you're figuring out which streets to repair or repave, do you figure in the impact on the adjoining properties and the drainage as you're adding layers of asphalt?
Of course we do. See, anytime you're adding additional elevation to your road and it's changing, and some of that changing is to level it all out to make it smoother, you got to be looking at the impacts to drainage. You got to have that crown on the road. It's got to go somewhere. You don't want to be sitting in your road. You funnel it to ditch lines. You look at the impacts to catch basin elevations. You adjust those. Another thing, if you put too many overlays over time, you end up losing curb reveal, and you got to be careful of people's driveways too. So it's one of the things that you definitely look at every time you do surface treatment.
Thank you, because our association ended up spending $14,000 after a recent repairing for driveways that ended up being skating rinks in the wintertime. So I'm glad to know that you look at that seriously.
Yeah, and if you drive around town before the paving project, you'll see the little orange numbers If you go down to Water Street right now, you'll see them. And that's an indication of how you're going to vary the thickness of the overlay at that point to get drainage to work.
Would you say that again, please? What?
Look at the paint marks right before they pave, and that's an indication of how close they're following the elevations of the surface treatment to make sure that the drainage keeps working correctly.
Oh, thank you.
So I also am very much appreciative of the work you've done, and you all do a phenomenal job. That said, there is one area that's not getting quite the attention in terms of drainage, and that's Cross Road, right in front, going down to Pickpocket. So our driveway's washed out, the front of the driveway's washed out at least once, if not twice. Just most recently, this summer, when they were running a fire hydrant, they let the fire hydrant run right in the street, and it tore up the side of the road and the drainage that goes down onto the trail system that goes across our property. And so you all did a great job. You came out, you dumped a whole lot of rock in there, but up towards our driveway is now dirt. And I did make a note to DPW when that happened that as soon as it starts raining heavily, that dirt's going to wash out and you're going to have to go pave that again. So it's just a small example of an area that has been sort of addressed a couple different times and might benefit from a more thorough look and a long-term fix. Because they do run that fire hydrant. Right now, they usually run it through my yard, which has been another conversation that's been running. But for some reason that day, they just opened up the hydrant and dumped around the street, and everything washed out.
One item that we sort of got an update on in the subcommittee meeting, and I apologize, it didn't get transferred to the report, but if you look down at the bottom of 21, vehicle maintenance 55319, they were asking for an increase in $10,000 to the budget. If you look back over the historical, the last 3 or 4 years, the budget's been $50,000 for a number of years, and we've exceeded that pretty much every year in the last 4. So that increase is basically due to the increase of just costs and shop work and just sort of cost of doing business. So that's why that increase is.
Sorry, what line are you on right now?
55319 down at the bottom, vehicle maintenance.
Yeah, I don't see that. I don't see
21, page 21.
Page 22?
Oh, different tab, got it, yeah. All right, different page,
Corey, could you give us the updated highway benefits numbers?
Yeah, and this will be one of those divisions that has an increase to full-time as well. So top line, full-time salary wages is now $758,049, 758,049. New salaries total is $798,870, 798,870.
Okay.
Moving into benefits, health insurance is now $234,598, 234,598. Dental insurance is $14,983, 14983. No change to life. FICA is now $49,530, 49530. Medicare is now $11,584, 11584. And retirement is $104,920, 104,920.
I prefer not to ask, but what's the benefits total now?
$416,239.
You okay? Thank you.
14.3%.
Would you repeat that, 416?
I'm sorry, yeah. 416.
239.
239.
Thank you.
Increase of 14.3%.
Okay. So then the total highways and streets total on page 22.
Total highway and streets, $2,189,710. 2189710, 9.4%.
Ooh, baby. On behalf of the subcommittee, I will move that number for the Highways and Streets budget.
Second, Andrew Elliott.
Any further questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, snow removal. Just a little refresher. Last year, we found that it seemed like salt was being used, let's say environmental salt, it's not true salt, was being used more than the actual snow removal, so we rebudgeted things last year. Again, just for historical knowledge, the town is looking at, or public, I don't know who exactly suggested it, but there's going to be a snow and ice deficit fund. So instead of having these budget items, you'll see they go down to basically placeholders. And this will allow us to more effectively react to, basically build up a fund so that we can do our snow removal as required instead of worrying about going over a budget or under a budget, and just have it be as part of a fund that we would draw off of as required. So that will be seeded this year with $75,000. And that is described in the pre-tab. I think, is that a fund balance item?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So I thought, so that will be coming out of fund balance, so there'll be no additional tax impact of that $75,000 fund being set up.
It's usually $50,000 a year that we recommend from fund balance to fund
Right.
that fund. This year it'll be $75,000.
So what we saw was that the line for contracted snow removal, which takes care of snow downtown, gets it out of town when we have a heavy storm. In the last few years, it just hasn't been used as much. So we're asking you all for whatever we asked, $25,000, but we're not spending it. So it turns back to fund balance. So we thought, well, rather than ask for it every year, why don't we just put it into the reserve for snow and ice? It's there. We can use it over years and only as we need it. So we're not asking for more budget every year when we don't need it.
Does that make sense, everyone?
Yeah.
So you're setting a fund up so that you can be more responsive to different types of draws upon that we need for taking care of snow.
So if the actual, snow.
If you need salt more than you need plowing, then
Yeah. So it can come out of this fund instead of having to worry about, again, have the questions every year. Contracted snow removal is, sometimes
right. Why is
zero.
this one high and that one's low? And got
So
it.
now it just comes out of a CRF.
Will the salt stay separate?
Yeah, it's a separate.
So the salt won't come out of the fund.
It won't come out of the fund from a budgeting standpoint, but if, like last year, we spent $105,000 on an $80,000 budget. I don't know exactly what the management is, but if this fund builds up to the point, then maybe we could avoid that. I mean, presumably this is all snow and ice, not just for contracted snow removal, but maybe not, I don't know.
Yeah, it's for all snow.
It's for everything. So it's everything related to snow removal. So instead of way overspending a certain line item, then we can be more accurate in our budgeting and still have the fallback fund to assist with the expense.
And we only tap that fund if we go over budget.
Right.
So it's hence the name, the deficit fund.
That's good.
So right
It's
now,
almost
just
literally a slush fund.
an update on year-to-date. On a $315,000 budget, we've spent $252. We have about $50,000 left, so if we have a light December, then we won't have to hit the reserve fund. If we have a lot of activity, then we'll make the budget whole by tapping into that reserve through a request to the select board.
Okay. Any further questions? Okay. Are there any updates to wages or FICA or anything?
I'm going to give you a breather. There are none.
Okay.
So
So the budget is still $289,511?
that's right.
On behalf of the subcommittee, I would move that number for the budget for snow removal.
Second. Amanda Kelly.
Bob Kelly and Amanda Kelly. Further discussion? Don?
What percent is subcontractors in plowing? If you,
That would be the 55218 plowing line.
As far as participation goes, we typically use 10 to 15 pieces of subcontracted equipment compared to the town's 10 pieces of equipment. So it's about 50/50.
50%?
Yeah.
And they generally tend to be smaller, the smaller vehicles as opposed to the larger?
For contractors, it really ranges the entire gamut. We have, small one-ton dump trucks all the way up to loaders and graders. So it really depends on the need that we have year to year. We do have several repeat contractors that do come back that we know we can rely on.
And they're assigned a section or a series of roads, et cetera, et cetera?
Correct, yes. We break the town up into several different routes. We try to assign those routes based on the equipment we have so that it can be efficient, fit the route, and really meet whatever need we have in that area.
Thank you.
Further questions? All those in favor of a budget of $289,511 for snow removal, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. On to solid waste disposal. We have two items that the subcommittee really weighed in on here. One was blue bags, 55018. We're on page 23 now. We had, for a variety of reasons, our inventory on blue bags ran fairly low over the last couple of years, so this, we're at a point in the cycle, the purchasing cycle, where we need to get our inventory back up so we don't run out of the bags. So that's what that increase is for.
So, point of clarification on blue bags. So I pay, what, $25 per roll of 10 of bags. Does that cover the cost of the program?
What program are you
Well,
referring
so
to?
I'm looking at the blue bag. Is this the blue bags used by the town?
Yes,
Okay, just purely by the town.
purely by the town.
Amanda's shaking her head no.
You mean town by municipal buildings,
Correct.
and he means town by the whole town.
Oh, okay, so this.
These are the residential blue bags.
Oh, that's what, okay, that's what I thought.
Sorry.
And this is just
I
the
knew what
cost
we were
of the
doing.
actual cost.
So this is the cost of buying and storing the bags?
Buying the blue bags.
Now, is that cost covered by us, the residents of the town, purchasing those bags?
There's a revenue piece.
Yes.
That piece is, it
Yes.
is.
Okay, so even though this cost went up, there should be no tax impact because it's covered by revenue?
It is covered by revenue. The revenue from the blue bags generates approximately, we budgeted this year $744,000 in revenues for blue bag revenue. And to get the total cost of the program, you have to add the blue bag cost to the solid waste disposal or recycling contract cost. And that gives you the whole picture. But if you look at it in pieces, yes, the revenue from the blue bags covers the actual buying of the blue bags.
Okay, but there's still then, you've got to take those blue bags and
Right.
dispose of them, and method, okay.
Still have your whole entire collection.
Right.
When the blue bag
disposal
program started in the late
Two lines
80s,
down.
the intent was for it to
Cover
help
the,
offset the cost of the disposal contract. It was a
Okay.
lot higher percentage back in those days because the disposal contract was not as much. Now, there aren't a lot of vendors out there who provide that. We're sort of over a barrel, but it's still in the around 50% that it helps offset that cost.
okay, thank you for the clarification.
And then the other item was the household hazardous waste service. We host that every year. There are seven towns that are part of that, basically the surrounding towns to Exeter, that the residents have access to the facility for the day or for the morning that is held, and then we bill the towns and they pay us. So our portion of it is about $11,000 on a total, what's historically been about a $30,000 budget, and just cost of contractors going up, there's a $5,000 increase this year. And I think our numbers were down, if I recall you saying.
They were. So we capped the amount of vehicles this year at 400. We were slightly less than that. I think we were somewhere in the range of 325 vehicles or so. But we'll be generating those invoices this week and trying to recover that revenue as quickly as possible.
As a resident, I deeply appreciate the ability to go through my house and get rid of a lot of things that I was looking at and trying to figure out how the heck am I going to. Electronic waste, I know how to do, but all that buildup of occasional roundup and all that other stuff, it's now gone, and I really appreciate it.
Any other questions by the committee on solid waste disposal?
So stickers and garbage litter bags for town and public works to sell is similar to blue bags in terms of you buy these things and then they get sold back to the residents?
Right.
Okay.
Any updates?
No updates.
No updates to staff. So the budget is $1,650,458. And I will, on behalf of the subcommittee, move that number.
Second.
Bob and Amanda, the Kellys. Move in second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Bob,
Oh, yes.
we're moving along very efficiently, and if you'll just, if you don't mind indulging me. Can I just back up? It's settled, it's fine.
We're paying for the bag.
The snow
Percentage
removal
of the cost
fund,
of having
and as it
all
relates
the-
to the contracted services, that question came up via Dawn, I think. With the new arrangement, are we going to be still tracking closely how much we're expending on contracted services, or are we as a BRC going to lose track of that?
No, we'll still be tracking that.
Because I was busy looking at the historicals, because I didn't dare ask the question before looking at the historicals, and I know that the argument has been, not enough manpower, et cetera. That's why we do these contracted services, right? I think that was certainly part of the
Yeah, that and keeps the amount
conversation.
of pieces of equipment that the town needs to own and maintain down as well. So,
Yeah.
and then we have a little bit better control over those variable costs, whereas if we were to have the equipment and the staff on hand, we'd be paying them all the time for work they may or may not be doing.
I would hope that the goal is to minimize the contracted services, and hopefully if we had enough employees, et cetera, that we would reduce the contracted services and we'd have our town employees do more of the plowing.
This is like
Correct.
snowstorm, everybody wants to get plowed. All the town guys are out,
Yeah.
and all the contractor guys are out at the same time. So in order to get where you want to get, we'd have to have double the fleet and the people
grant you that.
year round in order for those snowstorms to happen. So it's just a timing issue.
Yeah, well, but it was also a discussion that was had in the context of employee, I think, shortages and what have you, and the historicals have been going on. So I just wanted to, since it's going to be accounted for in a different way going forward, I just wanted to put down
Just to
that mark.
I just
clarify
wanna
one more
clarify,
thing, snow
Bob, if
removal
I might.
that line is just for big dump trucks to
Yeah.
go downtown,
Yeah.
take the snow into the truck
Yeah.
and drive that snow away. It's not plowing. So we
okay.
did this last year too, but
Okay.
it's confusing how it's written, but that's not actually plowing, that's a separate thing.
Well, it's actually not confusing because plowing is
Well,
under
But
55218.
people see snow removal and
Right.
plowing in their heads.
But it says hired contractors
Yeah,
will
yeah, yeah.
I
supplement
know.
town staff.
That's why I said it.
And
Got it.
as Steve said, about 50% of our plowing capability is
It-
from those hired contractors.
So it was confusing, and thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, very good.
Good.
So just to clarify, when we do what Amanda gesticulated there, we're going to still account for it in that line, even though we put $1 in there. If we need to pull from that reserve where that money's sitting, then we will, but you're still going to see it next year. Oh,
That's kind of where I was going with the accounting part of it.
Track where they're.
Staying-
Got it,
Track.
okay,
Yes.
that's good,
Yes.
thanks.
No-
Sorry for the digression, but I thought I'd put that marker.
I think Tom's onto something. I think we should see Corey and Melissa driving those big trucks.
I'm happy
All hands on deck.
Oh,
to be
I'd like to
there.
discuss the timing of the storms.
Yes, Listen, sorry for the interruption.
One more.
I want the little,
easy.
the sidewalk tractor, I'll do that.
There
That's
you
a
go.
big one.
Okay.
When the subcontractors wipe out mailboxes or
That's where I was going to.
such, is it ours, the town insurance or the individual contractors?
It's a $50 allotment. The town pays $50 for a mailbox that is knocked over.
A streetlight, so it's hitting a car in a parking lot, anything,
Well,
it's $50?
That would go through the town's insurance. Mailbox, there's a specific
Mailbox
policy
is
for it.
$50.
So they're indemnified, the contractors are indemnified by the town.
To a certain extent, they do have to carry their own insurances, if they're at fault
Okay.
in their vehicle. But if it's, private property damage caused by our contractor, typically would fall under the town's insurance.
Okay.
Falls under town insurance.
Yeah, bullshit.
Okay.
Gonna check the minutes for that.
AI has gotten very good about taking out any swears.
So on to streetlights. Explanation in the narrative, but basically we had a 5-year contract with Unitil to switch over the town streetlights to LEDs, and that we finished that up last year. So hence the reduction in that line. And that will be, in my understanding, that will be a continued reduction, right? Or it's not just
Well, it
going
should-
down to
it should-
140?
It should flatten out from here.
Okay.
So 140 for the FY '25 budget, that we should see a number similar to
So the
that
delta
for
from
FY
140 to
26.
160 was what paid for the LED conversion?
Correct.
The rest of it is for the streetlights themselves? Got it.
Correct.
Okay. Any questions on streetlights? On behalf of the subcommittee, I'll move the budget of $147,000.
Second, Andrew Elliott.
Andrew Elliott, second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next page, page 24, stormwater. As you can see, the contracted services, 55058, and catch basin replacement are, have been underspent for a couple of years. Well, catch basin replacement this year. But contractor services has not, I don't think there's a year-to-date more than zero right now, is there? This has basically been, we had just quite recently become fully staffed in the highway, or on this section of Public Works, and so we've had some limitations on staff as well as contractors to do this work. So the subcommittee, I think, wanted to take a really hard look at these two lines, but they are part and parcel to our stormwater program and our MS4 permit, allowing us to update catch basins and provide for the list of services that are shown in the notes. So we basically punted and decided to give it one more year. So certainly up for discussion, but we went over this a number of times and just, they're working hard on this. When they have staff to do it, it's not a forgotten item, but instead of 7 per year, they're doing more like 2. So we're hoping to get back on track, and I guess we'll take a hard look at it next year.
For those of us who are new to this, what is a catch basin?
Catch basin is for the drainage program. It's the grates that are in the street, so
And then
stormwater drainage.
The grate and what's below it?
And what's below it.
Okay, I've seen them going in, I just didn't know what they were.
So water goes in there, and then there's a separate line, not sewer, that goes typically to the...
Stormwater drains going to,
Exactly.
okay. And one other stupid question, why are pet waste bags under stormwater?
Because of the MS4 permit.
Ah, thank you. Oh, so it doesn't end up in the stormwater?
Right.
Ah, makes a lot of sense.
Ton?
Steve, your moment to shine. How many catch basins do we have? I do have the note that we have 48 left to go.
Yeah. In the entire network, we have, I know I have this somewhere.
Ballpark.
Do you remember, Paul?
I do not.
Sorry.
That's a J.
Back in the day, I would have had my, going back to 2009, but
Yeah.
I stopped doing that. So I have a number
I mean,
somewhere. but
we
I
got
forget.
48 to go, as my notes say.
It's probably,
Pardon me? Right, yeah.
it's got to be several, hundred, if not 1,000, right?
There's a lot.
It's a lot.
There's a lot.
It's a lot.
In the hundreds of them. It's in the hundreds, no doubt.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's where I was going with that. There's hundreds of them, and
So
there's 48
Bob,
left to go.
just on the
And you
contracted
gotta go-
services, an
And that's
updated
assuming-
year-to-date,
Gotta go in there with a backhoe, dig the whole
we've
thing
spent
out,
$5,300, but we have 50,000 encumbered. So there's about $1,000 left on that line, 55058, under stormwater.
So what Corey just said is we've encumbered about, you said 50,000?
50 encumbered and 5,300 spent.
So there's an anticipation that into early next year, we can really get this going now that we're more reasonably staffed than we were at the beginning of this fiscal year.
The MS4 permit is a 5-year permit, so we're currently in year 3. The majority of the compliance activities take place throughout the year, and then a good portion of contracted services is the permitting that goes along with those activities. So a lot is happening, but usually we don't see those invoices to the end of the year when the entire program for that year is complete and the reports have been filed. So I think we just submitted that, I believe it was last week or the week before, so we're expecting an invoice for that any day now. But the funds have been encumbered to pay for that.
I should have asked this when I was asking about catch basins. So what exactly is the MS4 permit? What does it allow us to do, not do? Does it need to get renewed every 5 years? All that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Do you want to handle that?
Yeah, so MS4 permit has been around quite a while. And they keep up with it. And every time they up it, they have. more
They is the state of New Hampshire or federal government?
EPA.
Okay.
Is doing,
Feds.
along with New Hampshire.
When that happens.
Doing the New Hampshire rules. And it's basically from the Clean Water Act so that you can have cleaner runoff, cleaner streams, cleaner rivers, that sort of thing. So it starts with mapping systems, then it starts taking out pollutants. It is really trying to be more friendly to the environment. That's the big picture.
And so the permit, so I usually think of permits are a permission from somebody, an authority for me to go do something. And so this is a permit that allows us to do what?
So it basically allows you to discharge your stormwater into the receiving waters.
As long as we meet certain requirements such as pet waste, okay.
Mostly it's them telling us what we have to do
Right.
in order to have that permission to
Okay,
dump water.
I got it.
That's what it is
Yeah.
mostly.
Unfortunately, the Clean Water Act says that any new permits can't be any less stringent than the current permits.
So every 5 years,
Every 5 years.
they can throw something more restrictive, okay.
Which they do.
Okay, thank you very much for the background.
And just to state the obvious, even things like street cleaners
Right,
factor into that.
Right, because then you're getting it out before it goes, and that's why the pet waste
It's all
bags are in
baked
there.
That's a large part of it's baked into our budget.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Any further comments or questions on stormwater?
Yeah, Dawn, ask you a question.
On behalf of the committee, I will move the budget of $92,360.
Second.
Fran, thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And just for information, the subtotal before maintenance,
$4,971,603. 4,971,603.
Thank you.
7.2%.
Okay. On to page 25, maintenance. Jeff Beck is the maintenance supervisor in town with us this evening. Gave us a broad overview of the various programs One item of note, which we'll get to further along, is that we had a Department of Labor audit earlier this year, which, was that earlier this year, or was it the end of last year? Last year.
Last year and began in the
That
prior
added
year.
a number of fire safety programs and items that we needed to add to our town building. So we'll be discussing that in a little bit. But anything you want to start off with? A little preamble? Or? No? Not in particular. Okay. So basically, that line item is 55392 down at the bottom. Fire safety. That's what that $9,000 increase is. It's basically updated alarm. For instance, the emergency or the exit lights had to be updated in certain areas with a different kind of lighting. And I think there was some reflective aspects to it or something.
In a lot of areas in town, in the past, the Department of Labor has allowed a retro-reflective decal that would show up with, say, emergency light or low lighting. You'd be able to see that in the event that lights went out or there was a fire, you'd see it through smoke. Now that's no longer a thing. The state of New Hampshire mandates that each room with, whatever the occupancy of the room is, has to have a lighted exit sign, has to have a minimum of 45-minute run time if the power were to fail and there were a fire, to be able to allow access out of the room. So we added somewhere near, very close to 150 devices throughout the entire town, the 13 main buildings, pump stations, substations, all the buildings in town. We added 2 fire alarms throughout town. We added different devices to fire alarms. There's been a lot of addition over the last 20 or so months to all of those systems throughout town, along with the emergency lighting, just the lighting itself. We added a lot of those too, and fire extinguishers. Some, I think the number is around 40 units, 40 additional fire extinguishers. And all of these devices need to be inspected annually. And that, the cost is not just for the inspection, it is also for the maintenance and replacement throughout the year.
One item that I just noticed I forgot to put in the report and is contract services 55058, mostly snow removal on the town buildings' roofs. As you know, many of the buildings are of the older variety. The roof structures are sensitive, so we spend a lot of effort in trying to remove snow expeditiously or expediently from these buildings. In '22, we spent $93,000 on this line, $83,000 last year, so the budget was significantly lower than it should have been for a number of years. So the addition in this line is to try to get up a little bit closer to what we actually spend for these services. I apologize for the not clarifying that in the report.
So, Bob, when there's greater expenditure than what's budgeted, where does the money come from? Where's this thing?
If it can't be brought in from a line that is underspent, then it would, theoretically come from fund balance, right?
It would be just from the bottom line of the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would come from a different department if need be, but we look at the department level first.
Right.
And try to make up any overages in that department.
Excuse me, would you say that again, the last part? And use your mic, please.
We try to make up any overages in that department, in the actual department.
So for
So
instance.
we look at other line items in the maintenance budget, for example, and then if there weren't enough funds in the maintenance budget, we'd look at the broader public works budget and then go out from there.
Okay, thank
So I
you.
don't know if you caught it, but in snow removal that we just finished talking about, Corey had said there was $52,000 left in that budget. It wasn't in any one line item, but it was the $315,000 total budget. We have $52,000 left. So that could be distributed among any line item that's there if we need it to be, whether it was salt or plowing or whatever. So that's the way they would look at it, is they'd look at that bottom line of $538,000 to see if there's anything left in that before they went to the broader DPW budget.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? You all set, Jeff?
Yeah.
Update on salaries and/or benefits, Corey?
Yes, one update to full-time salary wages, line 51110. New number is 257,956, 257,956. Salaries total is 318,512, 318,512. Into benefits, health insurance is now 71,515, 71515. Dental is 4,994, 4994. No change to life. FICA is 19,748, 19748. Medicare is $4,618, 4618. And finally, retirement is $36,431, 36431. Total benefits, $137,546.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions on the maintenance budget? So the new budget would be, Corey?
The general maintenance total is $593,608, 593,608.
And what would be the percentage on that?
10.4%.
On behalf of the subcommittee, I will move that number for the budget for the Public Works maintenance.
Second, Andrew Elliott.
Andrew seconds. Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next page, town buildings. This is relatively straightforward. It's just cost of maintenance of the various buildings, the various aspects, including energy costs.
Who are we leasing the train station from?
Amtrak.
Ah,
CSX.
Or CSX, sorry.
okay.
In the state. Well, the state's administering the lease on behalf of CSX.
Thank you.
Very annoying, right? It's very annoying.
Any questions on this section? Any updates on the biker or Medicare or anything?
Nothing to update there, Bob.
Okay.
We pay for that.
On behalf of the subcommittee, I would move a budget of $320,632. 320632.
Second.
Amanda seconds. Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Maintenance projects, for those of you who are new to the committee, we allocate generally around $100,000 a year for the department to do various large and small maintenance projects around town. These are more like a sort of a catch-all for a variety of projects. As you see up above in town buildings, there's a separate building maintenance account specifically for for town buildings and Rains Bar. This could include more than building maintenance. It could include things like adding an ADA stairway or an elevator or something that is generally a construction add-on, typically. We usually come close to spending this. It hasn't risen in a number of years, and the department does what they can with the staff that they have to do those projects, and we try to give them enough latitude to keep chipping away at their list. Most times they're successful in maxing out the budget, and other times they're a little light, but we have not penalized them. The work doesn't go away. It's more staffing constraints or contractor constraints than actual, than anything else. We have in the past chosen, a long time ago, we would get the list of projects and everything, and we chose, I think quite rightly as a committee, not to micromanage the department. They have their list, they work away at their list, and we give them the $100,000 every year. So that's the story behind that. John?
Jeff, just a question, but mostly a compliment. The DOL, the Department of Labor thing, also included necessary improvements in the town hall,
Yes.
correct? Which I just wanted to say, you did a great job, however that was done. You did a great job of sort of maintaining the historical, respecting the historical aspects of that. So I just wanted to compliment you on that. Same with this building here, you keep having to move people around and move walls around and what have you, and I think, I assume that's also under your purview. And I think you've done a really great job with that. So thank you for that. But maybe turning it into a question, I assume some of that comes out of this $100,000 fund, right? So,
That's correct.
and I'm sure these things come up when you least expect it, and that probably screws up your priority list pretty badly.
Well,
You want to comment on that?
it's a continual, it's a major part of the job, juggling needs versus wants versus absolute needs, but it generally starts on a health and safety basis. What's the safest thing to do, what needs the most attention, and that's what drives our budget in that direction. So we start at safety, and we start at just like with the elevator. We didn't expect to spend slightly over $10K on the elevator at Town Hall this year, but it is over 25 years old and needed some pretty serious maintenance just recently.
And so without getting into the particulars of the list, because I think Bob's right, I'm glad we don't do that anymore. Is it frustrating or difficult to get those things done? Are there things on there that have been punted on for too long?
It has been.
Is it enough money?
It has been in the past. It's been light, some years, but it's been good. It's good to have that money. It's good to be able to plan these projects ahead of time, and sometimes, like we just discussed, we need to shift our focus because other things come up, and it's good not to have to ask for that money from someplace else, or table something, or close a building, close an area, close down the elevator in that building, then you lose ADA access. We have the funding available at the time to do that work, and that's what gives us the purview to be able to do that.
Great. Thank you for that, Jeff.
Just as an update, our books show year-to-date in June of around $16,000. The actual year-to-date now is about $50,000, and we're got a $10,000 fix to the elevator at the town hall on the books, and then we still have 2 months left. So this budget will get mostly spent, and now that we're fully staffed, what isn't spent would be probably encumbered to next year.
They also have
when we do have the staff.
They have a masonry project at the historical society.
We do have a couple of outstanding projects for this year that have fallen short of the list for the same reasons that everybody else is dealing with contractors being busy elsewhere and not enough skilled labor out there.
You have further questions? On behalf of the subcommittee, I will move the maintenance projects budget of $100,000.
Second. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Tom.
You do it, no, you do it.
Amanda seconds.
It's Amanda's job.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, last item under DPW General for the budget is the mechanics and garage section. The only real item of note that the subcommittee had, you'll see about a little over halfway down, 55129, fuel dispensing system. We have not spent anything on this item yet. For those of you who are diligent, you'll see that there's a fairly significant warrant article on the books for this year that we will be discussing in a few weeks to replace the fuel dispensing system. However, even if it gets voted in, that would probably not become operational until late next year or maybe early 26. So we still need to have this line item. I guess the question the subcommittee had was, does it need to be $4,000?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it does.
Is there work going to be done on that this year?
Yes, yes. We're due for triennial testing, that comes up in November. And that'll eat up a big portion of this. There are a couple of bills in now for the testing that was done this month. That will also take a portion of this. This $4,000 will be mostly expensed well before the end of this year.
Okay. And the same would go for next year. Because the system would not, even though it would probably be moved, the existing fuel dispensing system would probably be operable until well into the next year, if not the whole year. Any other questions on this item, or this division? Any updates, Corey? Health insurance, I'm assuming?
Yes, just health and dental. New health number is $80,132, 80132. New dental is $4,774, 4774. Total benefits is $121,935, 121,935.
And the total mechanics garage?
$316,765, 316,765, 5% increase.
On behalf of the subcommittee, I will move $316,765 as the budget for mechanics garage.
Second.
Second.
Andrew. Second.
Andrew?
Yep.
Thank you. Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And this is a fallout number. We don't need to vote on it, but unless you would like us to. But what's the total public works, just for the record?
$6,302,608, 6302608, 7.1%.
Just to show that we're dotting our i's and crossing our t's, I'm going to move that we accept that number. And I will accept a second.
Second.
In that regard. Thank you, Fran. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. As
Can I just say what I...
Oh, sure.
Before, I just want to belatedly welcome, I said it at the subcommittee, belatedly welcome Steve Cronin, and I just wanted to say how impressed I was with how deep his knowledge is of these line items with less than a year on the job. So it's one of the reasons why I wanted to sit in on the subcommittee, was just to check you out, Steve. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
I second what Todd Swan says. We were really impressed. Thanks.
So we won't get into the weeds on vehicles and bond and warrant articles, CIP items tonight, but we will go down the list so people can, if they have any basic questions on them. The write-ups are fairly detailed in the CIP book, and we will be discussing those in a few weeks. The vehicles include a dump and plow truck, currently labeled as 33. It's a six-wheeler, pretty heavy-duty truck that was originally purchased by Water and Sewer about 15 years ago. Shifted over to highway about 6 years ago. It was deferred in '23 and dropped from the warrant last year, so it's been kicked down the road for a couple of years. Public Works, because the cost of replacing this truck in kind would be over $200,000, they have, and they've kept the budget roughly the same as what it was 2 years ago, but are opting for a smaller, a little bit more versatile, more of like a Ford F-450 style of truck that is one, less expensive, but also more cost-effective in operation and maintenance than an in-kind replacement. And the subcommittee supports that purchase. Sidewalk tractor. We approved, we have two sidewalk tractors. We approved 2 years ago the first one, and this one is 32 years old. Most parts aren't available. We, with the use that these both get, as much as it hurts, we support this purchase just to make our fleet a little bit more current, because they are used, pretty much all the time during the winter. The final is the street sweeper, which does go directly towards our MS4, compliance with our MS4 stormwater permit. It's only 9 years old, but it gets pretty much constant use and under very corrosive and harsh conditions. It's basically dealing with grit and gritty water as far as cleaning up the streets, and so that tends to wear out moving parts. Again, so this was on the deferment list for last 2 years. There is, we're part of we were actually number one in the analysis by the state as part of the SRF, the State Revolving Fund Program. And my sense, I think the subcommittee's sense, was that if the state is saying that we were number one on the list, then the equipment's probably pretty much in need of replacement. We do also, as part of the SRF program, will get $100,000 of forgiveness for the purchase of that, so that we support that purchase as well. Bond articles include the aforementioned DPW garage fuel island. We'll discuss this in more detail. It's basically going to be moved to a different area as part of campus reorganization. And this would be the first step in removing a bottleneck of traffic, right at the entrance to the Public Works facility on Newfields Road. Another item is transfer station improvements, in addition to the polystyrene recycling equipment that Anna and her subcommittee referred to on Friday. There would be some site safety and expanded current services that are part of these improvements. Again, we will discuss these in more detail on CIP night. Somehow I had a significant brain freeze, which our lovely assistant town manager alerted me to. I somehow put parks and ADA capital reserve funds in this report. Don't ask me why. A long night. The intersection at Pine Front and Linden Streets, as you recall, 2 years ago, we approved a new rotary in front of the Exeter Inn. That project is in process. We're doing some administrative and easement work right now on that, but in the interim, the DPW did some video investigations and found that drainage and sewer pipes in that area are significantly deficient, seriously deficient. So the drainage work will be paid out of, are both paid out of Salem Street Fund? So sewer and drainage. So the $250,000 for this, $100,000 drainage and $150,000 in sewer, the work will be paid for out of excess bond proceeds from the Salem Street project that we just finished last year. So no tax impact of that. Linden Street Bridge rehab, we'll get into the details on this. There's some funding that we have received in the past that will go towards the significantly higher bids that we received in December that we were not expecting, and we'll get into those details. Pickpocket dam removal, this has been a 10 to 15 year project. We finally got the feasibility study completed last year. They gave us a couple of different options, either remove the dam or renovate it. Renovating it was going to cost, my notes seem to say, I think it was $5 million roughly, wasn't it? Is it that high?
I thought it was around 3.5 for some reason.
Yeah, it's close.
3.5, okay.
Yeah.
I bet. I thought my notes from a couple years ago, maybe that was before the feasibility study was done. At any rate, it's significantly cheaper to remove it than to rehabilitate it. So the subcommittee is recommending that route, as well as the select board has already done that.
Can, just for perspective,
Sure.
Can someone remind me what it costs to remove the Great Dam, roughly speaking?
2.7, I think, wasn't it?
I thought it was more than 2 million,
But less than 3.
but less than 3.
So that was the Great Dam. And renovating Pickpocket is estimated to be 3.5 M. Correct. Okay, got it. Just wanted to put that into perspective.
And there was a possibility of getting some grants for Great Dam. Is that a possibility here, or is that door
I
closed?
think it's being looked at.
Being looked at. Got it.
And there was one grant that was investigated, and I think we missed the window on it. So my understanding is they're looking for additional grants now.
Right.
Well, I have a question when you get
Sure.
time.
Right.
I don't know if we can get this from you, but I'd like it. Is there a list of things like the Lincoln Street project? Is there a list of other places in town that you would like to remedy? And what are the priorities on that list? Is that something that's available?
So the town has done a few different intersection studies over the years. The information is available on the Public Works website.
Okay.
I think we are going to be recommending, I believe it's next year, adding another intersection study to evaluate half a dozen more or so. But some of those projects are currently in planning stages. Others, like the roundabout, are ready for construction. So it's really funding based and where they fall on the priority list.
But your website will give me the information I want, which is just what those are and kind of where they're at.
What's been evaluated and what's been recommended.
Great, thank you.
Okay. The last item was put on here basically by the subcommittee. If you recall, like in the under highway and streets, there's a sidewalk maintenance line, and that is a fairly small number, and it's actually been cut a little bit this year by the executive committee. The sidewalk CRF was deferred for funding for the past 2 years, and I think is out of money, if I'm not mistaken, or does it still have money in it? We were originally planned years ago to put like $100,000 to $200,000 a year into the sidewalk CRF. But at any rate, it's been deferred for the last couple of years for a number of reasons. So the subcommittee, since we're keeping the paving budget effectively level, we're basically backfilling the 150 from road aid, but it's the same number that we've had for the past few years. There was a thought that, and the sidewalk improvements come out of that budget. So in order to maximize the ability of the Public Works Department to do, paving as well as sidewalks, there was a consideration to resurrect this item, even though it's not in the CIP and it's not part of the budget discussion. So I throw that out because it was important to the subcommittee. What I plan on doing is sort of digging out the write-up from previous years and providing that for CIP night. But ruminate on that, if you would. It does seem to be an important issue for many people, and the subcommittee felt very strongly about at least having a discussion about it. So I bring that up here.
And Bob?
Tell.
And I think it was in fact, I'm sorry, I don't like it. Paul made this point quite strongly about the cost of the sidewalks eating into the pavement budget, did you not?
Yeah, that's correct. And we had to dive into, we had to do some curb and sidewalk and milling improvements in paving, or else the system wouldn't work. And it'll be part of the discussion on Monday night with the select board to the amounts of money that we spent over the last 5 years. And it was a significant amount, improving those areas because of the curb and sidewalk conditions.
Right. And one of the points you made was that the cost of the sidewalks is surprisingly high, so that eats into the road, or potentially eats into the pavement budget.
Yeah, and I'll be talking about magnitudes of what we discovered is how much we spent over the last 5 years.
Thank you, Paul.
Any other comments or questions about the Public Works General budget? Don?
Simple questions, I hope. If a catch basin is on a town road, a catch basin system on a town road, it is the town's, correct, responsibility? Right. And does the DPW have any lawn maintenance anywhere in town?
I believe for our facilities we do, but if it's a public building.
But your facility out on Newfields Road?
Yes.
Whatever lawn there, but basically everything else, no lawn for the DPW.
Will be Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
All right, that's fine.
We take care of pump stations. We
Yep,
take care
okay.
of water, sewer, pump stations. There are, there is some mowing.
Intersections that may have an island or something like that, that's not your problem?
Mostly
Okay.
the intersections are Parks and Rec.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
That's it.
Okay. On behalf of the subcommittee, thank you, Steve, Paul, and Jeff, and pass our thanks on to Jay as well, because he's on vacation. So.
Are we missing something? I mean, this has been really rapid fire, so are we missing
Efficiency.
sections of the budget or something?
I've been doing this for 15 years, Judy. If it's not rapid fire, then you should fire me.
Just checking.
But thank you.
Did chase down the number of catch basins. It was 1,300 in the system.
1,300.
Wow.
Yeah,
There you go.
Did you get that from the new GIS coordinator? Or? What's going on?
Actually, I texted the guy on vacation. And it was not feeling like
Yeah, Jay had nothing better to do. Look that up. So next week, next Wednesday, the 30th, Judy Rowan and her subcommittee will be presenting the police and fire budgets. So we'll look forward to that. Any further comments or questions? If not, we stand adjourned to Wednesday, October 30th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, We invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.